Welcome everyone, everywhere, wherever you may be physically, mentally, or economically to A Reasonable Agenda. This is a public service announcement created to educate in a non-divisive way about the progressive movement championed by Bernie Sanders. I am not a politician, I'm not a journalist. My name is Eddie Love. I'm a hardworking American citizen with two amazing kids, and that's all I need to say about myself. I have no ambition to use a specific platform to self-promote, raise money, or profit in any way. I would like to first thank Debbie Heavey, Randy Brewer, and Aaron Bolio for allowing me to do this today. In our last installment of A Reasonable Agenda, I focused exclusively on Medicare for All, written by Bernie Sanders. What is in the bill, how it is funded, our current healthcare system, and the history of universal healthcare. If you've missed that episode, I recommend you check it out by visiting our YouTube channel. Don't forget to click like and subscribe. If your local broadcasting station doesn't air this program in your community, you may email us at areasonableagenda@gmail.com to find out how to become a sponsor in your town at no cost to you. Otherwise, episodes of Reasonable Agenda can also be found at natickpegasus.org. In this installment, I am covering the most important fundamentals of our revolution led by Bernie Sanders, Nina Turner, and other political figures. I will cover why Bernie Sanders lost his presidential bid in 2016 and 2020. I will talk about income and wealth inequality in the United States and the state of our democracy, and a plan to succeed a progressive revolution in the course of the next couple of elections, potentially the next couple of elections. For many people, the 2016 election was one of the most exciting events in American history. It all started off with two unlikable candidates getting all the funds, all the airtime, and the superdelegates. What the establishment failed to do was sell us on yesterday's options, the Clinton years, the Bush years. Naturally, public opinion from both sides of the aisle, they've been clamoring for an outsider for quite a while. Senator Sanders understood that we needed an alternative to the status quo, Hillary Clinton. When he realized Liz Warren wasn't going to run, he took up that responsibility. However, a man named Donald Trump stormed the Republican primaries and completely shocked the system, using people's fear to gain votes, splitting the independent vote and dramatically changed the election climate. Trump got the nomination in part because every Republican ran against each other. Until the very end. On the Democratic side, the DNC fully backed one candidate, Hillary Clinton. They pulled off nominating the most unlikable Democrat in modern history. The mainstream news media focused mostly on Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Bernie Sanders was silenced because Bernie was a bigger threat to billionaires than any candidate. He joined Hillary in an attempt to defeat the most dangerous candidate in modern history, Donald Trump. Wait, does that mean Bernie Sanders sold out? No, in fact, there was no personal gain. It means he did what he promised he would do from the beginning, to not let a Republican win due to the extreme toxicity of their modern agenda. Senator Sanders put his country before himself. Although Bernie helped Hillary gain millions of supporters who otherwise would not have voted for her, she got smoked in the Electoral College. Donald Trump became president, and I am definitely not going to waste my airtime on Donald Trump so much. That's what we have the mainstream news media for. The establishment knew Bernie would run in 2020 and he would likely win. This is why every Democrat and their brother competed in the 2020 primaries. Joe Biden was practically and strategically handed the nomination because virtually every establishment candidate was on Team Sabotage Bernie. By tactically suspending their campaigns last minute, endorsing Joe Biden just before Super Tuesday when Bernie was expected to win big, this gave a jump far in the lead for Joe Biden, forcing Bernie to suspend his campaign so they can unite against Trump. The DNC coordinated this effort with flashy progressive candidates like Beto O'Rourke and others who flopped on Medicare for All, and also Andrew Yang promoting popular ideas like universal basic income, which is not on Bernie's agenda, luring a fraction of young people away from the Bernie wing. What did progressives like Andrew Yang do? vigorously endorsed establishment candidate Joe Biden. Everyone at once, Amy Klobuchar, Pete Buttigieg, and many others. They pulled the rug from Bernie's feet by dropping out at the same time. These candidates chose to participate in this extremely misleading tactic to defeat the popular candidate. They are not progressive at all, in my view, with few exceptions like Marianne Williamson, the only candidate to endorse Bernie, and of course Elizabeth Warren, who is a strong progressive in her own right, but ultimately wasn't competitive enough. She lost in her own state, so she refused to endorse anyone. She chose not to stand against the establishment for personal reasons. Due to selfish rivalry with Bernie Sanders, she refused to even endorse him. That endorsement could have changed everything. She was losing everywhere big. If it were the other way around, Bernie would not have hesitated to drop out and endorse Warren. To push the progressive agenda forward, not to say she is not progressive, she absolutely is, but she is also absolutely a career opportunist. I really couldn't see myself backing her for president in the next primary because she's lost a lot of credibility. No one was closer to her platform than Bernie Sanders. She was clearly losing, but refused to drop out, splitting the progressive vote. Accusing Bernie Sanders of a sexist statement he said in private, "A woman cannot win." Which is a farce because Bernie helped lead a coalition in 2014 for Elizabeth Warren, not himself, to run against Hillary. He has been endorsing women for years, well before it was fashionable to do so. Not to say maybe it could have been Bernie was explaining because of sexism and patriarchy, women are unfairly disenfranchised politically. That makes sense. But she clearly wanted Bernie to lose no matter what. We could be in a different place right now, but we can't change the past, only learn from it. I won't be a hack and not give Warren credit for progressive work she has done or work that she may do in the future. But we do need leaders in this country, in this fight, who choose this goal over personal career gain. She chose to let Biden win. She let it happen. We will never forget. Ultimately, it's our fault for not voting in bigger numbers. But she could have made a big difference. Once again, Bernie was unable to defeat the establishment in 2020. It is important to not get hung up on politicians who let us down. We must focus on our revolution. What is our revolution? The concept of our revolution is to rethink America and invest in the next industrial revolution. This means creating a government that works for 100% of the American people and not just a handful of billionaires. A great reference to this vision goes back to President Franklin Delano Roosevelt and his creation of the Second Bill of Rights, which he never did pass as law. As you can see up on the screen, it guarantees a bare minimum of necessities of survival to eradicate poverty and establish long-term economic growth for everyone. One idea being single-payer health care, which is a priority in this progressive revolution. And as I've mentioned, I covered Medicare for All in my last program, and I encourage viewers to check it out if you haven't already. Again, you can find it at YouTube, on youtube.com, under A Reasonable Agenda, Medicare for All. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Another goal is providing education for all, including universal pre-K, tuition-free college, and universities. Not every nation views education as a human right, but most nations in the world have either free college or very affordable college. The results? A decrease in crime rate, a decrease in drug addiction. Someone once told me that knowledge is power and not everyone should have it, and I personally couldn't disagree more. Because currently the rich children are guaranteed all the knowledge and all the power. Meanwhile, the average poor and working class person are at extreme disadvantage. At some point, I might do a special on government-funded education, but for now, I would like to move on to the rest of this agenda. We have more childhood poverty than any industrialized nation on earth. At the same time, we are the wealthiest nation in the history of the world. As of 2022, the top 2/10 of the top 1% of wealth own as much wealth as the bottom 92%. The gap between the rich and the poor continue to widen. Another dismissed fact is we still have a mediocre voter turnout compared to many other democratic nations on earth. Not enough working class people vote. Not enough poor people vote. Not enough young people vote, especially in primaries. This is where you come in. Any parents out there, how many of you have children? Because I have two myself who I love very much, and I personally fear for their lives sending them to school. We are not even 3 months into the year, 2023, and we've already had over 30 notable school shootings. There are ways to stop it, but we need bold gun reform. Let's face it, MAGA, before 1963, AR-15s were not even available to the public, which means our parents didn't need them growing up. Maybe they were just tougher than us back then, who knows? You want to make America great again? You can. Mass gun violence was a rare tragedy back then. Ask your parents, ask your grandparents. Our generations, X, Y, and Z, has become the most desensitized generation with consistent mass shootings that we have not yet prioritized as a nation. Hopefully my children will never have to experience the horrors of a school shooting. They still face a far more imminent threat by the time they graduate from high school. Climate change threatens the very existence of humanity. Within this century, the sea levels will rise, flooding coastal cities on Earth. Farming will become particularly difficult. A lot more fires, record-breaking storms that would surpass anything we've seen in history. Clean drinking water will be one of our biggest challenges, and billions of people will likely die due to climate change. Now, this sounds like a cheesy plot for a disaster movie, but the majority of scientists are on the same page with this. Climate change is real. We can change this fate, but the longer we wait, the more expensive it gets. I know conservatives hate this. We have to invest trillions of dollars in a comprehensive Green New Deal. Wait, Eddie, what is a Green New Deal? Good question. The title Green New Deal is an homage to FDR's New Deal, which did pass in the 1930s, when Franklin Delano Roosevelt led the United States out of the Great Depression. The New Deal raised the standard of quality of life for the majority of Americans, created the middle class, and pulled millions of people out of poverty. The Green New Deal is a modern-day version of that bill, but it deals with the existential threat of climate change by doing away with toxic sources of energy in favor of clean, renewable energy. Let's face it, fossil fuels are not renewable, and it will run out. The demand for it will only increase prices in the future. It is not ethical to continue. It absolutely sucks for our planet. But in addition to changing our sources of energy, the Green New Deal would provide tens of thousands of jobs, rebuild American infrastructure, and pull people out of poverty. There was a bill presented on the Senate floor in 2019 called, you guessed it, the Green New Deal, written by Senators Ed Markey and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The vote was 57 against the resolution in a 100-member chamber. Not one Republican was in favor of it, no surprise there. But it is disheartening. Also, to no surprise, a few conservative Democrats, including Senators Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, voted against the bill. Does this mean we lose? No, it means we have never been closer to passing a revolutionary bill like this in 90 years. During Trump's presidency, too, we can certainly pass one like it under future administrations. The Build Back Better bill gained even more Democratic support. But we need to outnumber spoilers like Joe Manchin and other self-described moderates. We do this by electing more progressives in primaries big and small, including midterm elections. How can we tell if self-described progressives are legitimate? Let's face it, most of them claim to be progressive, but is usually just not the case. It's just a show. No one wants a neoliberal capitalist as a leader. I know I don't. which is why political correctness has become increasingly unfashionable. The art of telling people what they want to hear, how they'd want to hear it, with no follow-through only works for so long. Figures like the anointed Secretary Buttigieg and Kamala Harris are just the same Democrats with the same old ideas. They do have great talking points. They even take a couple of stabs passing progressive policies, or at least relatively progressive policies, compared to what Republicans are offering, which is the only reason why they are more electable than Republicans. We need to support exclusively grassroots candidates in primaries and caucuses, and vote for them too. Grassroots, as in no super PACs, no billionaire donations. That is one easy way to narrow down the progressive choices. Why vote for a Democrat anyways? Democrats lie all the time. They are as corrupt as Republicans with big money influences undermining the will of the people. Just elect the ones that aren't taking the money. It's pretty simple. But they gave the anointed candidates unfair advantages over popular candidates, initially disenfranchising millions of voters during the primary. This is important, so really listen up. I am not a Democrat, and I will not tell you to vote blue no matter who. That line is well played out. People don't want to hear it for good reason, but it doesn't matter the party. We have indisputably pushed the right-leaning party, the Democrats, closer to the left with Bernie Sanders' movement and many other new progressives we have sent into Congress in the past 2 election cycles. This means we are in the middle of hijacking a major party, which is pretty badass when you think about it. With measurable momentum, I would love to see some more independent and third-party candidates, and they have progressive victories. But if that's what you're holding your breath on, you are not heading in the direction of timely, transformative change. Let's face the facts. In 2016, the minor party with the most votes was the Libertarian Party, which secured 3% of the votes, which was not enough to even make a dent in the Electoral College. But it was a minor party victory in recent history, since the 90s, I believe, due to the most unlikable candidates to date, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. But do third parties have momentum? No, not at all. In 2020, the same party received only 1.2% of the vote. That is the opposite of momentum. To achieve transformative change, we need to fuel wherever the momentum is located. At this time, the momentum is located in the Democratic Party. So let's keep building on that, because it would be foolish to abandon a ship that is definitely not sinking. Meanwhile, I invite young people all around the country to run for office in any party. It really doesn't matter the party. I understand nobody wants to be a tool for an establishment Democrat. Therefore, we replace them with progressives chosen by us, funded by us, and elected by us. Now that will liberate minor parties, which are currently disenfranchised. Everyone, I've created this program to pass along information that is typically avoided by media correspondents. Also to encourage viewers to break free from keeping their political opinions to themselves. Ideologically, this nation hasn't been this divided in a very, very long time. The time has come to start talking with friends, start talking with family members. Your opinion is important. And it might sound precocious, but it's true. It actually does matter, because if you are wrong, it's your opportunity to learn. If you are right, it's your opportunity to teach. If we can all step away from our comfort zone for the sake of contributing more political conversations, there will be a dramatic shift in the national narrative quicker than you'd think. If we don't, the political climate will only become increasingly polarizing, encouraging more young people to presume the means of escapism and stay out of it, which is exactly what the establishment wants. But what do I want? I want to debunk some myths right now. Myth 1. Real change, like gun reform and democratic socialism, is unconstitutional. There is a Republican narrative that the Founding Fathers wrote the Constitution with a vision it may never be altered, and that is just plain untrue. In fact, the key author of the U.S. Constitution, Thomas Jefferson, was a forward thinker, which is why he wrote Article 5 of the Constitution, allowing any amendment or law to be changed when necessary. The Founding Fathers put their trust in the future. I would like to read a quote by Thomas Jefferson, and this is what he said. He said, "I am not an advocate for frequent changes in laws and constitutions, but laws and institutions must go hand in hand with the progress of the human mind. As that becomes more developed, more enlightened, as new discoveries are made, new truths discovered, and manners and opinions change. With the change of circumstances, institutions must advance to keep pace with the times. We might as well require a man to wear still the coat which fitted him when a boy, as civilized society remains forever under the regime of their barbarous ancestors." Good old TJ. He clearly gets that in 200 plus years, the average person will have significantly better judgment than any president of his time. Myth 2. Socialism will only lead to communism. Let me first say, no, not at all. Just more right-wing propaganda to scare you away from something that would actually help the working class and the lower class. Well, what is socialism? Socialism is a theory or a system of social organization in which the means of production and distribution of goods are owned and controlled collectively by the government or by the people. In this case, democratic socialism. But there is no reason to fear these words. Virtually every nation on earth has socialism in one form or another. In the United States, we have the fire department, we have parks, we have libraries. In most countries, the governments, they have that, but they have a lot more than just that. Here in the United States, we have corporate socialism. To quote Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., "We all too often have socialism for the rich and rugged free capitalism for the poor." What that means is instead of managing an economy that benefits all American citizens, we have an economy that disproportionately favors the billionaire class, which makes up about 0.2% of the population, which is where 52% of all new income is going. Meanwhile, 60% of the working class are falling behind on bills, unable to save a nickel. The housing market will be exclusive to only the rich. Folks, we are losing our middle class. The right-wing narrative is that the American dream still exists today and everyone is just lazy. The left-wing narrative, I guess that's me, is that your average family is struggling to afford childcare in preschool because both parents are forced to work longer hours, in many cases more than one full-time job per parent. Typically, we're all paid less than we're worth, all of us. Longer hours, low wages that do not properly reflect the costs of living. If the minimum wage today reflected the cost of living of the 1950s, let's say, we would actually would have increased the national minimum wage to $23 per hour by now. There are some narratives that it is somehow radical to demand $15 per hour. Quite frankly, that's not enough. The national minimum wage hasn't really been increased since Jimmy Carter, and that's nearly 40 years. Trickle-down economics has accelerated since then. Myth 3, government-funded programs will raise the prices of everything, everywhere. It seems from a global standpoint, prices have been going up everywhere. So why are prices going up? Is it because the rich is losing money? Absolutely not. Year after year, they have been making record profits. The technique CEOs use is called price gouging, and it is a win-win situation on their end. They intentionally mark up their prices, piss everyone off, blame it on the government-funded programs like Medicare or Meals on Wheels, and we're all just singing the same old tune about the Republican and the Democratic Party. The rich have been successfully getting rich as the middle class are just struggling to get by, as the poor get poorer and the sick get sicker because they cannot afford to go to a doctor. Less and less pursue college in the fear of crippling debt. The new normal has become survival for the average American. We should have an economy that sets a basic foundation for people to pursue their dreams, raise their children, and live with dignity. We were once on that path, but corporate greed has taken us very off course. So what do? It is entirely undemocratic to have a law that contradicts the will of the vast majority of citizens. The solution lies within common sense legislation like the American Anti-Corruption Act, which I encourage viewers to look up. Firstly, it does include term limits, but it sets max term limits to a reasonable 18 years. But that's definitely not the active ingredient to ending corruption in Congress. The bill cracks down on lobbying to revolutionary proportions. It would make it illegal for politicians to take any money from lobbyists. That's a big one. It'll ban bundling, and if you don't know what that is, lobbyists are regularly bundling money together, large sums of contributions from their friends and colleagues, and they deliver them in one big sum to a politician. This turns lobbyists into major fundraisers, giving politicians an incentive to keep them happy through political favors. Under this bill, politicians are prevented from raising money during the workday when they should be serving their constituents. It will prevent elected representatives and senior staff from selling off their government power for high-paying lobbying jobs. The Anti-Corruption Act ensures that all significant political fundraising and spending is immediately disclosed online and easily accessible to the public. It'll end gerrymandering. This bill eliminates lobbying through loopholes and cracks down on super PACs. This particular installment of A Reasonable Agenda was a bit of a summary of our movement, but in future installments I will be focusing in on specific topics and we'll be going over them more intricately. But this program is posted on YouTube as well. To help us grow our audience, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Whether you are watching this on cable television or on the internet, I implore you to join this movement. Not me, us. There are many ways to do so. Making small donations to grassroots candidates is effective. Canvassing and phone banking for grassroots campaigns is even more helpful. But the most effective way to make this very plausible revolution to happen is to actually vote. You can double your vote by offering someone a ride to go vote. You multiply those votes by thoughtfully convincing friends and relatives to register to vote and participating in the political process. If you can, reserve Election Day off. That is not always possible for the working class, but if you can, use that time to stuff as many people in your car as possible and get them into a voting booth. Offer rides, particularly people who don't drive. So I will continue with this series about our revolution, and if you would like to get involved, you can email us at areasonableagenda@gmail.com. I'll be back very soon. Thank you for watching.